Howdy. Welcome to my shop. My name's Ron and I'll be your host for the next 10 minutes or so. Being a fourth generation carpenter, wood is that's my language. It's my living, it's my hobby, it's my passion. One of those passions is making stocks. I've never had any formal training in this. I just wanted to put a piece of wood on a gun one day, and I seemed like that'd be a pretty unique challenge, so I tried it. And been going at it ever since, but honestly, I owe a lot of my success to my customers, my friends that have suggested this or that, different ways of doing it to produce a better outcome. And so I appreciate them. I owe them a great deal. The finish that I use was suggested by a friend of mine that owns a gun shop in Georgia, a guy named Dan. I've been friends with him for many years, and I owe him for that knowledge. So I don't suggest that my way is the only way. That's just not the case. I picked up my abilities to do this from watching other people and seeing other things and then figuring out how to do that. So it's a process. Some ways are better, cleaner, faster. They require less effort. On and on it goes. And I'm open to learning new and better ways. I'm always looking for that. My grandfather used to say, never let a day go by that you don't learn something. So when I do, I'll often look up, thanks, Pop, because no matter how old you get, you still need to be learning new things. So come on in, see what's going on today. Good morning. This has got nothing to do with gun stocks. This has to do with a former life. This is a side rail, a bed rail, from a Victorian Jenny Lind style bed. And this is a 72-inch rail, which is the old size for a full-size bed. 72-inch. Nowadays it's 76. And so you have to extend these things from time to time. And the way they're made, how you extend them depends on how they're made. Some things you can just add to them, some things you can't. And so what I'm going to do with this one, this is the headboard end, and the headboard is about 6.5, 7 feet tall, great big old huge Jenny Lind head on top of it. And the way it's put together is there's a bolt with a captured nut back in here. And they had two pins, which I think have been replaced because these look like modern pins. The bottom one is actually just gone. It's missing. And so what I'm going to do is add a 4-inch block, 4 inches this way, on the headboard side. And it's these appliques on typical Victorian furniture. It's going to look like one of those, but stuck on this end here. So just in case somebody might be interested in woodworking of this sort, I'm going to go ahead and film this. This one over here's got a crack in it. Matter of fact, I filmed it. I am deciding to film it after I got started. There's a crack in the top of this headboard, and so what I've done is just flex that crack open and closed and put glue along that seam and letting it go down. If you'll just wiggle it like that, it'll go down. And you have to hold it still. I got it clamped down over here to my table with a towel underneath it so I don't scuff it up. And then, like the Hippocratic Oath, first do no damage, do no harm. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just let that glue wiggle down into all those cracks. Then I'm going to flip it over. There's some of these appliques, these plaques on the front that I'm going to have to put glue in behind those. So I'm just getting started. We will film this, try to edit it down, and maybe make just a few minute episode of how to extend bed rails and how to work on old antique furniture. You can see where this plaque goes down through here. I need to get glue in between the plaque and the board itself. Part of it's already running in there just because gravity and vibration. And I think there's probably enough back in behind there. When I squeeze this, it's going to distribute that glue. I'm going to put pressure on this thing from 2 different directions at once. I'm going to come in this way and sandwich it between a couple of some pads. And the first thing I'm going to do is put this clamp on the other side, because this varnish is super fragile. It's very, very old. It's never been redone that I can tell. And it's easily scratched. You can scuff it if you sneeze on it. So I'm going to leave some room over here for a glue block. And I'm going to put one on the back, one on the front, and sandwich it with some pressure on it. Now this block is a real hard piece of maple, I think, or birch. Anyway, it's hard. And one side of it I wax, and I label it wax. So whenever I go to clamp something that it may come in contact with glue, I'll put the wax side down, and that way it doesn't stick to the actual rail itself. Now I'm going to clean off all of the old glue or the glue running down that I can get off of there. Mainly because I just don't want to make a mess and squirt it out everywhere if I can help it. The mess you don't make is a mess you don't have to clean up. One of my favorite sayings. It's easier to just not make the mess to start with. Now there's very light pressure on here. All I'm doing is sandwiching it to keep it in line. So when I put pressure on it, it doesn't bow this way or that way. I want it to put pressure straight in. And this guides the pressure. Now I'm going to finish tightening this bar clamp. And the glue is coming out on this side of the crack and on this side of the crack. It's coming out everywhere, which means there's enough. I'll wash all that off later. Okay, I'm going to let that thing sit there and think about it for a couple of hours or more, and I'm going to make my blocks. I'm going to have to add this is about a 2.25, something like that, inch block. Right now it's 1.5 inches. I'm going to let it stick out on both sides. About 1/8 on this side and about 1/2 or so on the back side, inside. And I've got pins, they're alignment pins, holes on the top and bottom of this rail, and I've got to transfer those pins to the other side of that block so that they pin into the headboard. And then this bolt, there's a through bolt right here that comes from the back of the headboard into a captured nut on the inside of this rail. And this is a 7-inch nut, 6-inch nut, or bolt. This is a 6-inch bolt, 3/8, and I've got to get probably a 10-inch bolt to have enough room. This is a 3/8 standard bolt. So I can do that, and I may have to, if I can't find one with a slot in it, I can get a carriage bolt and grind the square part of it off and cut a slot into it. I can make it work, whatever it takes. I don't think so. I can make a gun stock out of that one. That one, straight grain, black walnut, 2.5 inches thick, give or take. That'll work. That's a hard, thick, solid piece of walnut. And I need 18 inches of it, but the problem is this saw won't clear the thickness of this thing. I gotta cut this on a bandsaw and then come back and trim the edge of it off. So I'm gonna cut it 18 and half to start with, and then I'll come back and trim it after I've straightened the sides of it. About every woodworking project starts with a straight edge and a square cut. And this doesn't have either right now. I'm going to start with a straight edge. This edge that I'm putting against the fence is a rough cut. It's got a circular saw cut, but it's straight. It's straight enough to give me when I parallel this over here, this will be a straight cut and it'll be smooth with that machined edge. That is a very slick cut. Now what I'm going to do is flip it around and straighten this other side. I'm going to cut 4 inches. I'm going to slice off 4 inches. That's how much I have to lengthen that rail. Now I can cut my length to 18 inches and square both ends of it up. I've got about an extra 1/4 of an inch on the length of these. And this first cut I made might be square. It is. I'm realizing that there's a crack where this plaque is coming loose right here, and I want to go ahead and glue that on while I'm working on the rest of it. I want this right here to be setting up and drying. There's a crack right there and it's loose on this back side, so I'm going to force that open, get some glue in there and squeeze that back together. When I used to build cabinets, there were always cutouts from sinks that had Formica on them. They're just particle board, you know, cabinet countertop material. But that Formica, those blocks make some great gluing blocks because glue won't stick to these blocks. And they're kind of dense. They're not super strong, but they're dense. Now, I want to be able to get in here and wash this and clean this after I squish this glue everywhere. So I got to put that block placed in an appropriate place where I can get in there with a cleaning rag. They're easier to clean up before they dry if you have room to get in there and do it. It's a lot easier to clean it up when the glue is still wet. And when it dries, you don't have to be in there with a pocket knife scraping glue off. Okay, I'm going to let that thing sit and think about it.